Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, and welcome to Pangolin, the conservation podcast. The show dedicated to exploring and amplifying the world's underappreciated conservation stories. The stories that inspire me, and I hope will inspire you too. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and today I'm joined by Dagmar der Weduwen, a PhD student at the University of St Andrews whose work revolves around the wonderful and weird world of archerfish. She's here to tell us all about these fantastic creatures, so we talk about how they hunt, why they would make excellent firefighters, and just how clever, or how much of a nightmare, they are. We also chat about the threats to these animals, the importance of mangrove ecosystems, and how the IUCN Red List, while often useful, can also not always be the most helpful. This episode is fantastic. I loved speaking to Dagmar. We laugh constantly throughout it, and I hope you get as much joy from listening to her as I got from speaking to her as well. Now, without further ado, let's get started. And welcome back to the show. I am now joined by Dagmar der Weduwen, a science communicator whose work is currently focused around the fascinating world of archerfish. So to get us started, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today, Dagmar.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Very excited to be here.
You are very, very welcome. It's one of those strange ones where, again, I feel like we've had a lot of guests this season who I've known via Twitter or via other podcasts or via whatever it is. So it's very nice to actually finally get a chance to speak to you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's great, and I've seen a lot of people who I am familiar with showing up on your podcast as well. If not, have actually met them. So that's yeah, it's cool that I now get to be on as well.
Yeah, I feel like there's a circle. There's this little circle of people on Twitter who all seem to be appearing on each other's podcasts, and I'm like, okay. I mean, it fits. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like once you go on one podcast as like the person who studies this animal, then all the other podcasts are like, ooh.
That's
once we do that animal, we know who to ask.
I guess I've hinted we're going to be talking about archerfish. I don't know if it's the same for you, but for me, it's like everybody sees me as the pangolin boy. Yes. And they don't care about anything else. All they want to know is pangolins about me. I have other interests too. Not many, but I have other interests. Is it the same for you? Are you the archerfish person?
Yeah, definitely. And especially because there aren't that many archerfish people in the world, probably similar for pangolins. If you work on something everyone works on, if you work on C. elegans, there's so many people who work on C. elegans, but there's like 3 labs in the world that do archerfish, and I think I'm probably the most public facing out of all of them at the moment. Like everyone who works there, all the labs do really different stuff. So I wish people would go talk to some of these other labs because I don't know that research as well. But hey, I'll come here and I'll just bring up blue tits and tree seeds as well because I know a lot about those things.
Yeah,
I always manage to. There we go. I've always managed to bring it up somewhere.
That's my thing. It's like, let's see how many of these standard topics I can bring up in every person's podcast. Just until their audiences come to me, I will keep bringing these things up just to make sure of it. Yep,
absolutely.
No, that's fantastic. I'm glad it's a shared experience. I guess that kind of has been an intro almost in itself. But if anyone wants relevant information, instead of us just being like, we have other interests, could you introduce yourself? Introduce yourself to listeners. Maybe what are your other interests? Tell them a little bit about you.
Absolutely. So I'm at the moment, 4th year PhD student at the University of St Andrews. It's a terrifying phrase to say. This technically means I should be almost done. But yeah, no, currently study social learning in Archerfish, but I am more of a general behavioral ecologist. So I have previously done research on nesting behavior in blue tits. I've done research on the dispersal of sycamore seeds. Now I'm doing Archerfish. Don't know what I'll do next. Don't know if we'll do research next. These are all valid questions. When I'm not doing research, though, you can find me playing Dungeons and Dragons, which I probably do just as much as I do research at the moment. But I just do a lot of both of those in case my supervisors are listening. I just don't sleep very much. Yeah.
I feel like
so that's most of what I do.
Yeah, I feel like that's most of, like, whenever people ask me what my interests are, it always ends up with, like, are you not tired? Like, what do you, like, when do you rest? I'm like, rest? I'll rest at some point. I don't mean rest now. We do rest later. Like, let's just do our stuff now. It's fun.
Yes,
It's great.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic and, like, really, really interesting. I think a good, nice intro. I have never played Dungeons and Dragons.
We'll
A
have to have
shock.
you on We'll have to have you on my show then.
I know this
where
is
science communicators play Dungeons and Dragons.
and this is the thing. I have listened to people play. And I have kind of, like, dipped, like, and I have friends who play, and, like, I've kind of, like, it's always been around me, and I'm like, I feel like I would enjoy this. But yes, one day I will jump across.
I won't turn this into a Dungeons and Dragons podcast because you get me started. I'm not going to stop, but it is. I only learned to play like a year and a half ago. And then half a year after learning to play, started Science and Sorcery. And now that's almost a year old, and I'm in like 3 campaigns, 4? I can't even remember. There's so much D&D in my life, but it's great. I love it.
Yeah.
It's a nice thing to do alongside research, because research is often, as I'm sure we'll talk about, the answers are not clear, and you have a problem and you don't solve the problem. You just end up with more problems. And in Dungeons and Dragons, you have a problem and then you solve the problem and then it's done. And it's like you feel like you achieved something, which in science, doesn't really happen as often.
It's like that joy of having, like, a to-do list that you finally get to the bottom of and go, yes, done.
Yeah, you just can check some things off, and instead of, like, run experiment, analyze results, have positive result that doesn't require any further experimentation, it's like, find dragon, kill dragon, celebrate. Like, that one we can do.
I love how, what is more achievable, researching Archerfish or killing dragon? Every time dragon. Every time.
Archerfish are little monsters.
Well, speaking of the little monsters themselves,
yes.
I have to ask, we've kind of, I wanted to speak to you for a while because they're a species that has come up many times on the podcast. We we do a series called Razoo where we go out, and every time we go to an aquarium, they have Archerfish. They're an interesting, charismatic, fantastic species that is a bit bizarre, a bit different. They have all these different things and quirks that make them a bit special. But I feel like if you were to walk past them in an aquarium, a lot of the time people don't realize just how special they are. And when you see, like, so could you introduce maybe the Archerfish to people? Really sell them, introduce them. Yeah.
Yep. Archerfish are the best fish in the world. Although they do look a little unassuming, I agree. They are one of 7 to 11 species of tropical fish. The 7 to 11 is because people can't agree how many species there are, which is a common issue in science. But they're distributed throughout the tropics in South and Southeast Asia and Australia. They prefer to live in mangrove forests, and they hunt by spitting water at insects that are outside of the water, which is, the main thing. If people have seen them on nature documentaries or something, they won't know what an archerfish is, but you say, the fish that spits water, and they'll go, oh, I've seen that on David Attenborough or something like that. But they can do other things. They're really good at other things as well. It's just the spitting's a very unique behavior. Until end of last year, they were officially the only type of fish that would hunt this way. Since there been shown there is another species of fish that can hunt this way, we just don't know if they do it in the wild. But also they're not as cool That's archerfish. Archerfish can spit like 6 feet away, and these fish are usually anywhere between 3 to 14 inches long themselves. So they're quite small for the distances that they can achieve with their spit. Which is just water. I'm gonna just say that right now because I never mention it. It's not venom or like saliva. Fish don't have saliva. It's just the water that's in their mouth. I'm gonna forget to mention that otherwise.
I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
And I'm also like, all I'm thinking of like now is like, imagine listeners at home, imagine scaling the archerfish up to the size that you are, and imagine how like if you could spit that scale. I'm not going to do the quick maths now because it would definitely be wrong, but it's an exceptionally impressive distance.
It is shockingly impressive, as given how accurate they are as well, because they're hunting, small insects or small lizards that are that high up, and they're able to hit them accurately while looking through the water barrier, which obviously there's a refraction of the water and air. So we don't know how they do this, but they adjust for that somehow in their calculations when they're aiming, basically. Humans can't do that.
I know. I was going to ask, like, how do they? Like, I'm surprised that is a thing that people. I mean, I guess people probably have been trying to work it out for years.
It would probably be a really useful thing for people to know. How can we make these adjustments, say for submarines or something? I hate it. Always comes back to how can this be used for the military? I hate that it always that's where my brain goes, but for things like that, it's it would be so valuable to understand this. And their eyes are incredibly complex, probably better than ours, I would argue. But yeah, we haven't figured that out yet. We don't know if they just don't pay attention to it or if they're actively correcting for it. They're probably not the only species that does it. You've got fish that hunt things outside of the water. I think greater trevallies are one of them. They jump up and eat birds. And you've got birds that hunt fish, so they need to adjust for it as well. If they're dive bombing, but yeah, we haven't figured that one out yet.
I like that. Nature 1, mankind 0. There we go. Another reason animals and plants and all sorts of things are better than us. Just they do things that are weird and wonderful.
Absolutely.
I mean, we did kind of spiral back in a way because we were talking. You said like they're not just special because they spit, and then I made you talk about the spit for a very long time. What else makes them special?
I can talk more about the spit. Would you want? Well, they do more things with the spitting.
Oh.
So it's not just the fact that they hunt this way. It's also the way that they use the water.
Okay.
So I get into a lot of arguments with some of my friends who study tool use in animals because they don't think archerfish use tools. Because generally it means, you're modifying something in your environment to use it to get a resource. And my argument is archerfish are absolutely modifying something in their environment to get to a food source they wouldn't otherwise be able to access. Because they're not just spitting water out. There are fish, you can probably find videos of other species of fish which will come up to the surface and kind of just water out of their mouth. I hope that sound transfers in this audio medium, because I think the visual's better for that. But it's, kind of pathetic.
Yeah.
And yet archerfish, their shots are incredibly concentrated. So they have a special groove in the top of their palate, in their mouth, and their tongue is quite rigid and has a little like a hump in it, basically, that fits into that groove. So they press their tongue against the top of their mouth, which creates a really narrow opening, and then they close their gills really fast, and that's what creates the initial force of the shot. But then it's not just a single force that happens. They actually change how far their mouth opens, very minutely, just opening and closing their mouth as the water is leaving, which changes the speed, which means that the water that leaves the mouth first is slower than the water behind it, which means the water behind it is pushing the water in front forward, which increases the momentum, which increases the force. So at the point of impact, which they calculate how far away is this creature, how what kind of adhesive forces does this creature have that's holding it onto the branch or leaf that it's on. So they calculate the force required to knock their prey off, but not to knock it too far away, because then another fish might get your food. And at the moment of impact, the water, which has at that point basically condensed into a massive like blob instead of a single stream, the force is actually about 6 times higher than the force of the muscles that first generated the shot.
What? Why do that's so amazing? We need to like these. Like, does it give them an award? Give them the Nobel Prize for
this
science.
Is literally, they're basically defying gravity with this, because if you think about the way an arrow or a bullet travels, it goes fast and then it slows down because of the resistance of the air, because of gravity pulling down on it, and that's what's called ballistic travel. You know, it starts fast, slows down. Archerfish are doing the opposite. And, you know, it's not going to accelerate indefinitely. It will fall to the ground at some point. But the initial speeding up is also the non-ballistic travels. Again, not something we figured out how to do yet. Which, you know, imagine firefighters. Their fire hoses had this non-ballistic capability. There's a fire up on the, I don't know, 4th, 5th floor. Imagine if they could just, instead of shooting a stream of water, shoot basically a giant bucketful at a time that would impact so hard that it would just put the fire out in one go.
I mean,
Archerfish should become firefighters, is what I'm saying.
I was going to say, we need to find a way. All of these silly science projects that are trying to like revive dead things that like or do like weird that abandon that.
Archerfish research.
Somebody learn how to make an archerfish about 10 times the size that it is now. And just
we would be eaten so fast. They're like Labradors; they'll eat anything.
I love that.
They'd look at you and go, "Ah, yes."
I mean, and I would happily. To be fair, I would be so in awe and impressed by them shooting me off of whatever I was like standing on. I'd be like, "Yeah, you deserve this. Eat me. That's fine."
If they were bigger and they ate me, I'd be like, you know what? That's fair.
Yeah. That is very
acceptable.
That's. I thought I loved archerfish before. I thought. Now I'm like, yeah, I'm sold 100%. They are the best. When you said they're the best fish at the start, I was like, oh, this is a controversial hot take.
No, it's the only correct answer to what is your favorite fish.
Has anyone ever like argued back with another fish ability and tried to be like, well, actually, this type of fish can do this, and that makes it as good?
I've had people say like, oh, but this fish is so pretty. I don't care. Yeah, my fish are they're just silver with black markings, but, you know, first of all, I think they are pretty. And second of all, your fish isn't as cool as mine.
No, they're simple but effective. Like, for anyone who hasn't seen one, we've talked about these amazing things, but but you might not picture them in their heads. They're almost like they're kind of like almost a leaf shape. In this kind of like swerve, and then they're kind of silvery with these kind of blacky spots.
They've got either black stripes or black spots on them. Some of them look a bit like cows. It depends on the species. The biggest difference there is the markings, the pattern, and they've got really long lower jaws because obviously they need quite a big mouth for all that water. And it angles down, so they always look like they're frowning.
Even more charismatic.
I think they're great.
I would agree. They're just like this bizarre, special little thing. And I feel like, they're kind of one of these tropical fish that kind of, I feel like people look at the bigger ones. They always talk about big fish. When I see all the documentaries, they're like big river monsters.
There's one species of archerfish, and I don't know if you ever had the chance to see the archerfish at Chester Zoo, which sadly is now closed. Is it Chester Zoo that's closed?
Bristol Zoo.
The other one. Bristol Zoo. That's the one. Sorry, Bristol Zoo. They offered us some of their archerfish. And we couldn't accept them because they were too big. But they were like a foot long. They were massive.
I was there recently, actually. Now that's kind of... I kind of saw it just before it closed. So I was kind of like... Now I remember vaguely being just like in awe of their whole aquarium, to be fair, because I'm just deep down...
I'm pretty sure it was Bristol Zoo that offered us... They were like 20 archerfish needed a home, so I hope they found somewhere, because sadly, they would not fit in our fish tanks. All the largest I have is like 6 inches long.
And that's still probably a lot bigger than what people would
Yeah.
expect. Like,
Yeah, I've had, I'll show people in my department or something the fish, and they always think, oh, I thought they were just going to be, like guppy sized.
mhm,
No, they are like the size of my hand, basically.
mhm,
If you've got an average sized hand, I guess.
mhm,
If you've got tiny hands. I do have some fish that are quite small.
mhm.
Got massive hands, probably not.
I always think that though, with especially kind of because when we're watching documentaries and stuff, you think when you see a bear in the woods or a tiger in
Yeah.
the woods or an elephant, you see them next to trees and things that you know
Yeah.
kind of the scale of in your mind. So you're
Mhm.
like, it's easier for a human to process. Whereas when you're watching fish of any kind, really,
Yeah.
like your brain, I don't know if it's just me, but like you
Yeah,
just
no,
kind of
I agree. It's much harder to tell how big fish are. Because even if they're next to, a coral or something, you don't know how big that coral is.
mhm.
Um, no, definitely. I don't think anyone's ever walked into my lab and gone, yes, that's exactly the size I expected them to be.
Yeah.
I don't think I did, to be fair, when I first saw them.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah. Well, that actually excellent transition. Why did you? So did you not like did you not know about them a lot when you like worked like began working with them, or was it how did it come about then?
It was a bit of a fluke. I didn't know a whole lot about archerfish. I didn't know a whole lot about fish, and
Mhm.
to be honest, I still don't know a whole lot about most fish. It's just I know like everything about archerfish that's ever been published at this point because I need to. But I said I was doing I did my master's degree on secondary dispersal of sycamore seeds,
Mhm.
which is a completely separate topic. But basically, once the seed falls off the tree, where does it go?
Mhm.
Which is not an area a lot of people have looked into. And I was doing that in the University of St Andrews, where they had a research master's program. So no classes, just a year of doing
Mhm.
projects that I came up with. And I knew I wanted to do a PhD. And I was looking on findaphd.com, the place everyone goes to find a PhD.
Mhm.
They don't sponsor me. I don't know why I said it that way. But
I love it. I'll just get you to read. I don't even do ads on the show, but I'll whenever I do, I'll come back to
I'm
you.
available.
When we do like a meal delivery service or something,
Yeah,
I'll come
yeah.
back. Yeah. Mhm.
No, and I was just looking, and I've never had like a set interest on a certain species or a certain group of animals, or even a certain topic within behavioral ecology. I mean, plants technically don't have behavior. I would argue they do, but most people wouldn't call what I did there behavioral ecology. So I found this one advertisement which was about studying social learning in archerfish and trying to see if archerfish could be used as a model species.
Mhm.
For social learning research, it's people tend to use apes or corvids, things that people assume are smart for other reasons.
Mhm.
Fish don't tend to come up because most people think fish aren't that intelligent. And I thought this one looked really interesting, and I liked it because it was an area that not a lot of people have looked into.
Mhm.
And that's my favorite type of research. It's the ones where it's like, well, why hasn't anyone done this yet? This seems like an obvious question. And I looked at the name of one of the supervisors who's advertising it, and that guy happened to also be in St Andrews, and his office was next to the desk I was sitting at. So I just went and bothered him, was like, hey, I would like to apply. So he introduced me to Nick, who was Archerfish PhD student at the time, who was finishing up, and took me down to the lab, showed me everything.
Mhm.
And Nick's the kind of person who always has more project ideas, so we ended up talking for like almost 2 hours, I think, about possible things that could be done with this PhD. So I applied and I got lucky. Which is how you get a PhD. You have to be the best candidate who applies, and there is often someone who's better than you. But this time, it happened to be me for reasons that are outside of my control, mostly. And happened to be lucky, and the project got funding. So, stuck around St Andrews and started working with these fish, which, yeah, not something I'd ever thought I was going to end up doing, but mostly been enjoying it.
Yeah, and I mean,
PhDs are hard, which is why the mostly comes from.
yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I was like, as someone who also went to St Andrews, I can see why you would want like an excuse, and even just to stay in St Andrews.
I really like St Andrews,
Mhm.
yes.
Like
Yeah.
the most beautiful, beautiful place in the world. I almost, although I like, I saying that before we started, I knew you went to St Andrews, and I've just started my PhD at the University of Edinburgh, and I was wearing a piece of University of Edinburgh merchandise, and I was like, it needs to come off. I can't betray
I
not on.
did my undergrad in Edinburgh, so we've just swapped places.
Oh, fair. Okay.
Yeah.
Not much of a right. That
No.
removes the rivalry. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. I've got my Edinburgh Uni sweater somewhere as well.
Yeah, it's like mine is shiny and new, so I've been wearing it around the house all week. But I was like, no, that's it. No, but
Good.
yeah, that's fantastic. Like, so aside from the not knowing what they were, but then being introduced, and then kind of the St Andrewsness of it all, and wanting to stay, like, what is the project about? What is it that you kind of are doing now?
Yeah, so it was meant to be about just investigating whether or not archerfish could learn socially and whether they'd make this a good species to study these kinds of questions in, because they're cheaper to keep than primates.
Yeah.
They don't need as much space. They've got really big tanks, but that's still, you don't need a zoo for 20 archerfish. I've got them in a room about the size of my bedroom. They're, in my opinion, more interesting than birds. But also, if fish can do these things, so social learning's often been seen as something which is, I mean, there's different levels of social learning and, the complexity of the tasks and how they do it. But it's often been seen as something that only things with a prefrontal cortex can do, or things that are similar to humans. And fish don't have a prefrontal cortex. It's the most recent part of the mammalian brain. So people think fish are not intelligent, and I think that's wrong. So the PhD was meant to basically go, hey, look at what my fish can do. Or, hey, look, these fish can do it, but that doesn't mean other fish can't. And there was some evidence that they could learn socially. So the holy grail of social learning research is imitation, which to most people just sounds like, you're copying something. For behavioral ecologists, it means copying a completely new task by observing another individual doing that task. So something that an animal doesn't do in the wild, for example, that they learn because they see another animal doing it. Not a human. That's primatologists mess around with that boundary quite a bit. Every time I'm on a podcast, they try to get primatologists to fight me, and it hasn't happened yet. So I have to continue.
If anyone's out there and wants to fight, we could set that up as a future episode. Just like, I'll get a bell, just like ring it, and then
and then we'll fight. Yes.
And just before you go on,
yes,
I feel like good thing to define just a little bit more.
Yes.
Social learning.
Yes.
So
social learning is learning by observing someone else do something, or by interacting, a product that they've created or interacted with. So it can be as simple as seeing another animal in a certain location and then going, hey, I should also check out what's over there. And that means you discover a new food source, for example. Or it could be, let's say two rats, one of them pulls a lever, and then the other rat realizes, if I pull the lever, I get food. There's many different types of social learning, but essentially it is, humans do it a lot, but just, copying is probably a good way to define it, although any behavioral ecologist here is now yelling at me because copying means something else. For scientists like to use words that other people also use and then give them obscure definitions.
And then be angry at the people who use them in the normal way for not using them.
Which is, bad scientists.
I got into trouble a lot during my degrees for like writing essays, because I'm so used to being like a person who takes complicated information and like translates it into like public things at like the zoo or the botanic garden or whatever it is. My brain sometimes when I was writing essays would use the like converted terms, and then you'd get in trouble. So you have to stay on top of that one.
Absolutely, yeah. And I have to teach it to the students here as well. When I read their essays, I have to go, technically you should use this term, even though what you wrote is correct. It's just we'd like to be obscure and not have normal people be able to interpret what we wrote. But yes, social learning in Archerfish. In 2006, when I was 10, I was not involved in this research, but there was a lab in Germany that published a study on archerfish, where they tried to get archerfish to shoot down moving targets. which is not something they do in the wild. They don't hunt, moving insects, because it's really hard. But this lab thought, hey, let's see if we can teach them. So they had a target that moved horizontally, and they had 5 fish that they wanted to learn. But one of the fish was really aggressive and wouldn't let the others come near the target. So only this aggressive fish got to actually practice. And it got really good at it. It could shoot down the horizontally moving target consistently. They then started moving the target vertically, and the fish was able to adapt to that as well. And I always joke that these fish are better at physics than me and math, but basically the fish had to predict or calculate the speed that the target was moving at, where it was going to be at the moment of impact, where they needed to aim, and how hard they needed to hit it. And all of this stuff happens in like milliseconds for these fish. They're really, really quick, which is just amazing. But these researchers then decided, we've got these 4 fish that have been in this fish tank. They haven't practiced. Let's just see if they can shoot down the moving target. And all 4 of those fish were able to shoot down the moving target with the same rate of consistency as the fully trained fish. Not the fully trained fish when it first started, the fully trained fish once it was fully trained.
Okay.
Which suggests that these 4 fish just watched the fish that was practicing and learned that way what they needed to do to shoot this moving target. Which would be imitation. Which would destroy the argument that only humans can imitate, which is what a lot of people think, or that only humans and primates can. But there is a problem, which is that this study was not designed to test for imitation. So they didn't have the proper controls and all the things that... There are many ways in which you could argue the fish might have just watched the target. They might not have paid attention to the other fish at all. They might just... there's many other reasons why they could have learned to shoot the moving target that doesn't involve social learning. So there's some evidence they learn socially, but not enough. So my PhD was meant to be, can they do this? Let's recreate that experiment. You don't start with imitation, you start with something simpler. If one fish learns to distinguish between 2 targets, can other fish watching this figure out which target they need to shoot to get food? So that's the experiment I'm currently working on. Thanks to COVID, I've also been doing a lot of stuff just on general group behavior in Archerfish. So looking at success rates of shooting down prey in different group sizes, success rates of actually getting the food in different group sizes. Whether or not Archerfish can watch videos of fish. Because Archerfish change their behavior when they're being watched by another fish because they know their food might get stolen. So they take longer before they shoot. So I want to know, can they watch videos? Which screens are not made for Archerfish eyes. They're made for our eyes. So a fish swimming around a fish tank in a video, for example, to us looks 3D, but it's technically 2D. And we're just able to distinguish foreground from background. So we're able to interpret it as 3D. Need to know if Archerfish could do that or if they just saw a big blob of pixels. So yeah, I showed a bunch of Archerfish TVs.
And did they know? Could they work out what was TV and what was not?
Unclear yet, as of yet. I am looking at the data, but the data is at the moment just going, maybe. So possibly need to do a bit more research there as well, which is, again, why I like Dungeons and Dragons, because you get a solid answer.
This is the thing. I was going to ask you for all the answers to these questions, and now I'm like, I feel like it's going to be a lot of, this is cool if it is true, but...
Yes, yeah. And that's... I mean, I do enjoy that about science, is that there isn't a yes or no answer most of the time. So I think what it could well be for Archerfish a lot of the time is they do have different personalities. These silly little fish. So it could be that different fish will be able to do a thing and other fish won't be able to because they're just not the same individual. Which is something that animal behavior researchers, I think, understand, but we don't really talk about that often, or at least not as often as we maybe should.
Just that everything's different.
Yeah. And especially, so I'm lucky, I guess, that all archerfish are wild caught. They can't be bred. So all of the fish I have came from the wild.
Mm-hmm.
Which means I don't have a lab population technically because my fish haven't been bred for generations. Whereas some people will work with, sticklebacks or guppies or
Mm-hmm.
a lot of bird research that happens in labs. And those animals have been bred in captivity for who knows how long.
Mm-hmm.
And that behavior will change. So I'm not saying my archerfish behavior hasn't changed because some of them have been in the lab for like 8 years, but they're not inbred necessarily, and
Mm-hmm.
they weren't raised from the start in captivity, which I think might make a difference as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting, though. That like, I'm intrigued by the fact that they can't breed in captivity. That's not something I'd heard
Yeah.
before. So it's
Mm-hmm.
actually really Like, I want, like, I know it's something like that's talked about a lot
Yeah.
necessarily. And you'd think for an animal that is or seems to be, we'll not say is for because we don't have any answers, but seems to be quite a intelligent
Yeah.
animal that can
Mm-hmm.
adapt to circumstances.
Yeah.
You'd think it would be adaptable in terms of reproduction as well. So it's interesting that they've just
I
gone, nope.
think no, it's less that. So archerfish are broadcast spawners. So
Okay.
basically, all first of all, you can't tell male and female apart because
Okay.
they're what's called sexually monomorphic. They all look the same.
Hmm.
But when they go to breed, they all get together and they just release all of their gametes. So that part I think isn't the part that we have trouble with the breeding. I've
Hmm.
not attempted any breeding of archerfish myself, but I know that lab in Germany at the University of Bayreuth's been trying to breed them for years now, and they
Hmm.
managed to get fry to about 7 days old, and then they just all died, and they
Interesting.
don't know why. And I think what it comes down to is we don't know a lot about archerfish in the wild.
Hmm.
Um, so it's possible because most of the fish are freshwater, some of them live in brackish water, but they can adapt to seawater.
Hmm.
So it's possible that when they're 7 days old, they go out to sea for a few months and then come back. Or maybe the temperature's wrong, or something else in the water that just isn't right.
Hmm.
And we just don't know enough about them in that sense.
I always forget that about fish, and the way that I would always describe it to people when I was working at an aquarium was like, imagine if in every enclosure in a zoo they had to
Hmm.
filter all of the air that went in and out of
Yeah,
everything, and they couldn't just like
yeah,
leave the animals to run around in the fresh air. Everything had to be filtered. They then also had to like adjust the levels in the oxygen to make sure
yeah.
everything was just absolutely
Hmm.
perfect.
Hmm.
They also have to like make sure that there's no toxins in that like
Yeah.
all of these little things. And then when you add in things like the kind of salt content, add in like all of the
Yeah.
it's
And then imagine they decide one day that the food they've been getting for years suddenly isn't good enough. On that particular day, it'll be fine again tomorrow.
Mhm.
But that means that I have to spend basically a week and a half in the lab every day changing 5% of the water because the nitrate content of the tank has shot up so high that I don't understand how they're not dead yet. Just because they decided to be divas for a day. Which is, archerfish are just the biggest drama queens. They're just absolute nightmares.
I love that. And even more arguments. That should be the argument. This like we know they have personalities. We know they're clever because they are divas and they're a problem fish. They just make my
Yes.
life
They
hell.
make my
That's
life so difficult.
it's no longer an experiment on archerfish. It's an experiment for how long you can cope with dealing with archerfish.
Yeah, 4 years seems to be 3 years seems to be getting towards the limit
Mhm.
of that.
Yep.
So ask me again in 6 months' time, and I'll probably want to strangle all of my fish just because they decided, no, we don't want to do your experiment.
Now, in possibly the most bizarre segue I think I've ever
Yes,
made,
yes.
aside from you being a threat to archerfish, we are a conservation podcast. so, so what threats do archerfish face out in the wild?
Well, me if I come near them. No, no, I am not a threat. If the Home Office is listening, I treat my babies so well. I love them, but they are nightmares.
Yeah.
You can hate your children, right? That's allowed.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, no, in the wild. So I think what it first of all they are mangrove species. A lot of them. So mangroves are one of the most threatened ecosystems on the planet because they're usually tidal zones with rising water levels because of climate change and global warming. Mangrove forests might not last much longer. They're also very vulnerable to typhoons and hurricanes because, again, they're in those tidal regions, which means they can get destroyed really easily if there's, too much, a big storm, a tsunami. They're at risk of threats from the earth, earthquakes and things, because they're technically also on land, depending on the tides. So yeah, very, very vulnerable ecosystems. Before we even get to things like human threats, like deforestation, increased use of mangrove forests for fisheries, and just everything else that humans do to the planet, pollution, etc. All of those will be threats to archerfish. Increased use of pesticides as well could. Archerfish don't just hunt insects that are outside of the water; they can hunt in the water as well. But again, pesticide runoff goes into the water, so then it's there's a lot of threats, and the biggest problem I think for archerfish is that for a lot of the species, if you look on like the IUCN Red List, there is no information on their conservation status. And I think sometimes people tell you that means that these species are doing fine. But on the other hand, I don't think that's actually true, because then it would probably say least concern instead of unknown. So there are 2 of the species, I think, last time I checked, do have statuses that did say least concern. But at the same time, all of the research we do in archerfish is in the lab. There isn't, as far as I know, anyone out there who is actually, going out and looking at archerfish populations in the wild. So I don't know where these measurements come from, and I don't know how accurate they are. And I think that's really the big issue. And I think I love that people are learning more about archerfish, but they are potentially also at risk of the Nemo effect, which I don't know if you know about. The increased popularity of clownfish after Finding Nemo was released. Everyone wanted them for their aquariums at home.
Yeah.
So they got caught in the wild and the populations plummeted. And this is with archerfish. I mean, they're not an easy fish. Even if you like keeping fish and you've been doing it for years, maybe you can handle archerfish, but they're quite aggressive. They don't really like being in groups. They're not a social fish. They are, drama queens. They're difficult. They're not for beginner fish keepers at all. So I would highly recommend against getting them as a pet. But people do sell them in pet shops, and I currently own most of the ones in the UK, I think, that aren't in zoos, which I personally think is a good thing because, we have the facilities to keep 20 archerfish at the moment. We can keep more, even, but they're not an easy species, and there is the concern that if they become really popular, other people will decide they want them as well, and until we can breed them, which might be never. We don't want to just keep taking them from the wild.
Yeah. And it's like the perfect storm of issues going on where you have not just the mangrove, not just the habitats going down, but then the rise in popularity could make other things go up. Then there's the data deficient issue, which I think we can talk a lot about, and actually is kind of one of the reasons we wanted to kind of have you on the show, I guess, is to kind of talk about this, because we were talking, like, it's something that I think a lot of people know about the IUCN Red List. They know about the fact that, like, this is a list that basically ranks lots of different species in different categories, from data deficient, where we don't know anything about, we don't really know the status of the animal in the wild, to least concern, which is kind of, they're doing okay on one level, but sometimes those are questionable assessments in themselves. And then all the way down to extinct in the wild, meaning there's none out in the wild, and then extinct because there's now no captive populations either. So, and then all the other kind of classic phrases that I feel like people are get thrown around in conservation, like endangered, critically endangered, all are based on this list.
Yep.
And being, yeah, and I don't know, you probably have a lot of opinions about the list itself, but before I ask you about it, I thought
Mm-hmm.
what I would do is just for listeners who are kind of wondering what is data deficient. The
Mm-hmm.
IUCN have a classification of what that actually means, which is a taxon is data deficient when there is inadequate information to make direct or indirect assessment of its risk of extinction based on its distribution and or population status. A taxon in this category may be well studied and its biology well known, but appropriate data on abundance and or distribution are lacking. So it could be an example. Like I was looking this up, and I'm now just going on a rant because I after I invited you on the show, I did research on this, and it annoyed me as well
Yeah.
because I was like, oh no, what? Like an example of something that is really a popular, hugely popular
Mm-hmm.
species that is data
Yeah.
deficient is
Mm-hmm.
killer whales,
Yeah.
which I was like. One of they're on the front of every David Attenborough documentary. They're on the
Yeah.
poster for everything. They're on postcards and like
Mm-hmm.
but are data deficient. And I imagine
Yep.
they are a popular species, so probably get a lot of
Yeah.
support. But for
Mm-hmm.
you, when we come to archerfish, it must be exceptionally because they're not as
Yeah.
well known or as praised globally as killer
No.
whales. So
They're
yeah,
not they're not your charismatic mammal, no.
so
Um
I guess before I just ramble on too much about it, I'm going to throw back to you. Tell us about this
mhm.
issue more and what it is. Yeah, what is your opinion on it?
Yeah, I think for a lot of these species, and I have to admit, I'm not a conservationist.
Mhm,
I use the IUCN Red List because I'm curious about animals' conservation status sometimes.
mhm,
But yeah, it's not what I study.
mhm,
So I'll just preface this with that. But I think a lot of the time, what I've noticed, what it comes down to is it's either species which have a very wide range, like killer whales. You know that you
mhm,
don't they migrate across the oceans. You
mhm,
can't just go to one spot and count them all and go, oh, that's it, that's all of them.
mhm,
Um, or it's species that live in countries in the global south,
mhm,
or uh, in nations where less research happens, or where scientists from Western countries go there just to research one thing and then they leave again.
mhm.
And I think what could be really valuable for getting more accurate information on the biology of these animals that are data deficient, on their distributions and their numbers, but also just on their general ecology, what do they actually do in the wild, is to ask the people who live near these creatures.
Mhm,
um because like I said at the start, archerfish, I couldn't tell you where each species is distributed, but they're from Sri Lanka and India all the way along the coast of South and Southeast Asia, all the way up to China, Philippines and Indonesia, and there's even populations down in Australia.
mhm,
So there are a lot of places where these fish live. And yet, for most of them, no one who we've asked can tell us how many there are, or if their
mhm,
populations have crashed recently, or if there's a certain threat that they might be facing. Whereas if we went to one of the places where they live, say we went to Indonesia and we were to ask local fishermen or people who work with animals in Indonesia and go, hey, you know these fish, you've seen them, past 5 years,
mhm,
population increased, decreased. Would you say there did have you seen changes in this? Is there anything they do that means they're being threatened by this or that threat? And it's just those conversations aren't happening.
mhm,
um and I think it's just a massive amount of data that probably exists, but that people from Western countries aren't accessing because
mhm,
they don't consider it as a possible source for
mhm,
whatever reason. So that's
mhm,
my personal issue with the data deficient. You're never
mhm,
going to get the data on all the species, but I
mhm,
think for a lot of species, for the ones that aren't really good at hiding, which archerfish are okay at, they're not great, they're pretty conspicuous.
mhm,
um yeah, if we just went out and just asked people, you know what can you tell us about these fish, we'd probably learn a lot. And we probably
Mhm.
learned a lot faster than if we waited for, the next PhD student to come along and go do some field work somewhere.
Mhm. And I guess people might be listening and thinking like, "Oh, well, that's that's all well and good. Okay, so we don't know where they are, but if there are concerns, like
Hmm.
why do you not just do something about it? Because if you know like, but then it becomes like it's such this difficult like there's not enough of people to start researching. I think I read and I don't know how accurate this number is. It was because it was a paper I think from 2016 that I read that
Yeah.
said 1 in 6 species on the red list are data deficient.
Hmm.
So I think it's kind of it might be different now, but that's
Yeah.
so many species that would need
Yeah.
reassessing and trying to
Hmm.
work out how many there are
And
and
there is also the problem of, the popularity of the animal.
mhm,
Archerfish are really cool, but yeah, a lot of people don't really know anything about them. And I'd say, arguably, they're more charismatic than most fish because they have this cool behavior.
mhm.
Other fish, yeah, most people probably don't know they exist. So why? Who's going to go out and collect the data on them?
And it's interesting because I kind of read when I was reading about it, the kind of self-perpetuating problem almost because no, so you might think, oh well, we don't know a lot about them, but oh, what is the real impact of that? Well, like the impact, I suppose, is kind of like when you're looking at endangered species, species that are classified as critically endangered or in these higher categories tend to get more attention. They tend to get more of the funding going toward them and the kind of the we need to fix these issues. So when you classify something as data deficient, it is kind of um, we we have a guest joining the podcast now. Sorry,
Yep.
that was trying to be, we were being very serious about a topic, but just in the nick of time, we've been joined by a lovely
I,
cat.
he's walking all over my keyboard. So.
But while you're sort of
Honestly, you might get her purrs on mic.
oh wow, this is the best. Could you introduce to the listeners who have we
Um,
been joined
this
by?
is this is my neighbor's cat Willow.
Oh
She's decided she wants to live in my house. So she
oh.
was having a nap on the bed, but now she's decided she wants some attention.
I lo- Listeners, you're not appreciating this, but her face is right at the camera.
But that's her butt.
Oh no,
She
I
doesn't
saw.
have a tail.
Oh wow. Oh,
Come
what
on,
happened to
check your pretty
Willow?
face. I think she was just born this way.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
It's good for
easy
her.
little sweetie.
Oh,
All right, go have another nap.
I was gonna say. Like I like that
I
though.
can't remember what we were
I
saying.
feel like that was excellent because we were getting into quite a heavy topic. So it was a nice break, and then we can go back into
Yeah.
the heavy topic, which was
Yes.
basically so yeah, what I was saying was you might be thinking about how the why is this an issue? Why is something being data deficient an issue? Aside from the kind of practical kind of effects of, oh, we don't know how many there are, we don't know how at risk they are. The kind of impact then of that is that you don't know how to kind of allocate funding, you don't know how to allocate people, you don't know who's going to be paying attention to these species because if they're data deficient, well,
Hmm.
there's things that are critically endangered. Why would we pay attention to them? So it's
Yeah.
this really tricky and self-perpetuating, I guess, cycle where we have
Hmm.
these classifications for animals that are really important, really excellent, a really good thing to have to help us understand and to help us communicate to the public. Look at these really endangered species, but we always have to be thinking about that and trying to kind of assess them ourselves or if they are effective and doing what they need to be doing. And for things like archerfish, it's not working in the best way possible.
No.
Mhm. Um, and I guess you kind of suggested a solution there almost in that we need to just talk to more people and get
Yeah.
the kind of
Hmm.
local people's knowledge on different species.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there? I'm trying to think. Is there if there's anything else that really could be done? But it's a tricky one. It's a really tricky
It's
one.
for the data deficient species. I think there isn't. I don't know how much there is that can be done other than getting more information. But
Mhm.
and there's a definite bias from scientists who work at universities or other institutions. That if you don't have an education in this topic, then
Mhm.
you couldn't possibly know about these things. And I mean, that's obviously not true.
Mhm.
um Sorry, Willow's just opened a bunch of tabs on my computer. Need to get rid of those. It's very distracting. um but yeah, there's definitely valuable information there. And we just need to stop being so stuck up about our educations and just ask the people who probably know way more about these things than we do. Um, and yeah, beyond that, I think just generally being aware that, you know, we all know about the species that are really endangered because they're, you know, on the logos or the covers of magazines or documentaries or whatever. I think just realizing and acknowledging that there are many, many more species who we don't know how endangered they are. Um, and just sort of becoming aware of that is in and of itself helpful. You know, I mean, there's species we haven't discovered yet that we don't know how endangered they are, but there's also species that we've known about for years. And at the same time, there's species that sometimes people discover in museum collections. They discover a taxidermy something, and we realize, hey, this is extinct. And we got nothing to show for it except this stuffed bird or whatever it is. So, and that is much more common, I think, than a lot of people are aware of. Yeah, extinctions happen constantly, mostly because we don't know.
Yeah. And I'll put a link to the IUCN website in the description, and everyone should go into the Red List website and search your favorite species, and you will probably be shocked by just how many of these things are either are kind of more endangered than you thought they were, or not assessed at all. Because and I think the ones that really get me are and I don't understand how they have made this assessment. Is some of them are data deficient but decreasing.
Yeah.
And it's what? How do you not know enough to give it a classification that indicates there's something going wrong, but you can tell us that they're decreasing in number? It's a really interesting. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, I don't know enough about how they decide the classifications. But I mean, you said you did your undergraduate in St Andrews? Yeah. Because there are courses here that I've helped teach on where students have to go through the IUCN Red List, and basically, you know, based on, you know, they'll pick like a state in the US or something, which mammals live there, and then they go through and they basically analyze the data from the IUCN Red List with like Wikipedia page views or something like that. So just picking an animal and telling people about it honestly can be helpful as well. I mean, that's all I basically do.
And I think it goes for even the popular ones. The one that the example I always use is things like giraffe. Giraffe are more endangered than elephants, but people don't know that because they are like elephants are always put up as the thing that's because of ivory and all this sort of stuff we need to protect elephants, but giraffe are more endangered than them, and so really familiarizing yourself with this list I think can really help to help you to communicate to your friends, your family, loved ones, anyone, if you're working in the conservation field, like telling people, because by familiarizing yourself with it, and it's one of those ones I feel like people understand what endangered means when you say it to them, because it's such worked into language so easily. They might not know all the technicalities behind it, but they know. So by familiarizing yourself with like, I love tapirs, or I love pangolins, or I love archerfish, even if they're data deficient, you then have that tool to say, listen, guys, we don't know what's going on here. We need to start protecting them. And I think it's such a powerful, interesting thing. So that's your homework, listeners. Go away, find out what your favorite species. We've had some excellent ones this series. We've had koalas, we've had tapirs, armadillos, anteaters. Maybe go back and look up them, because we don't usually talk about IUCN list classification. So go and do a little bit of searching and see what you can find, and just I guess that was a nice. I feel like minus the Willow actually did us a favor. We reset, and I feel like we all explained this much better because of the energy that she imbued into the podcast.
I think so. I think so. She's gone back to sleep. She did her job.
We've taken
I'm a
her
house
energy.
Cat. I am not endangered whatsoever. The opposite, even. I will go back to sleep.
Yep. No. So I guess
monster.
that's amazing, and I think a great thing to bring awareness of. And I like how that's amazing. It's bad, but it's amazing that you listeners will now know more about it. So go familiarize yourself, and I suppose this hour has flown by.
Yes.
We've talked about archerfish. We've talked about the IUCN Red List and how we need to become a bit more aware of it, and we need to kind of do some more research and open our minds to more forms of research. And that kind of brings us to my final couple of questions, which I ask everyone. So I guess the first of those would be, if anyone listening is kind of feeling inspired and wants to do something about conservation, wants to do something maybe specifically to do with archerfish, or whatever piece of advice whatever they might want to be involved in,
Yeah.
what advice would you give a listener today?
Okay. So for anything archerfish specific, I'm honestly not sure.
Hmm.
But I think just in general, learning more about mangrove ecosystems, I
Okay.
think is good, because there aren't that many of them,
Hmm.
but they are so chock full of different species. They
Yeah.
are so diverse. And it's it's an area which, we'll see it on a documentary once, but there's so much in them.
Hmm.
So just learning a bit more about them and about just the amazing creatures and plants that are there, um, is good. I'd encourage people to go to their local aquarium, go see if they have archerfish, and go support them. I know you're obviously pro conservation in zoos type of guy.
Hmm.
I Willow's now trying to take down my paintings. Um, okay. Sorry about that noise. She's opposed to aquariums personally. No, go to your local aquarium and talk to the people there. Find out what their favorite fish is. And
Hmm.
have a look at the exhibit signs and see if they say anything about conservation status of these animals, or if they say something about how you can help specific, research
Hmm.
that's going on in that institution, or just different ways you can help um, the species they have there. For those who are in the UK, one thing I really like to do, and I often get asked if I eat fish because I think fish are so smart, and I do eat fish, but there is the Marine Conservation Society puts out the Good Fish Guide every year, and it is
Hmm.
regularly updated to show, even based on which supermarkets, if you're in the UK, which fish can I eat, which have been sustainably harvested, which aren't endangered. Do I need to buy this type of catch or that type of catch? And it is just absolutely incredibly helpful, because you want to go eat some fish, have a look on that first and see if maybe the fish you wanted to eat isn't doing so hot this year. Try something else. So that's one I do like to tell people about, because it's a really good resource. They've got a website, they've got an app, um, and it can be really helpful for conservation as well,
Hmm.
because it can steer you away from the things that are helping to destroy ecosystems in the oceans.
Mhm. I think that's, yeah, fantastic advice. And I think something that I always encourage, yeah, the good fish guide, it's such a good and
Yeah,
it's so simple and such a
it's
nice
so
thing.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
so easy. And I think it's always good when we can offer solutions which aren't major we're not telling you you can
No,
never eat fish again.
no.
It's a
And
really achievable thing. Hmm.
yeah, and fish are intelligent, but that's because every animal is intelligent,
Hmm.
because they're all adapted for things that other animals wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah.
So don't if you don't want to eat animals, that's fine, but don't decide you don't want to eat some animals because they're intelligent while other ones aren't. I'd say,
Hmm.
all animals are smart in their own ways.
Hmm.
Um, so
That's a whole other episode
that's a
right
whole
there.
other episode. I
Hmm.
realize I'm bringing this up now, but I do want to, for anyone who goes, oh, but you think fish are smart. Yes, but I also think other animals are smart too.
Hmm. Oh,
And I eat the ones that have been sustainably harvested.
mhm. I like that. I like that
Yeah.
attitude. Yeah. And I feel like you are welcome back at some point we'll dive into that in more depth. We'll get
Oh,
some.
I'm happy to talk about the myth of animal intelligence any day.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Oh, well, and for people who want to keep up with the myth of animal intelligence in your work, I'm so smooth today. Nailed it.
Uh,
Um, where can they go to keep up to date with your work and things that you're doing? Where can they
yeah.
go?
So I have a website,
Okay.
which is my full name.com. So Dagmar der Weduwen.com.
Hmm.
It's hard to spell. I won't spell it out right now. But you can find my website if you go to my Twitter account, which
Yeah.
is at DJ Weduwen, which is spelled WEDUWEN. I also post updates there on things I'm doing in the lab. It's mostly in the form of complaints when things go wrong. But I do post videos of the fish sometimes. You'll get to meet Mr. Grumpy and all of my other Archerfish friends. I have my Dungeons and Dragons show where I do bring up Archerfish occasionally, which is called Science and Sorcery. We stream every other Monday on Twitch, and we do monthly shows for charity. Might raise some money for a mangrove-based charity at some point in the future. So you can find updates for that either on my Twitter or on the Science and Sorcery Twitter, which is Science and Sorcery. And other than that, yeah, I've got a YouTube channel. It's the Aficionado, which is Fishionado, which is mostly Dungeons and Dragons content at this point, but I do sometimes post videos about fish as well. But yeah, all those links are on my Twitter, which is probably the easiest place to go to if you want all of this stuff.
Yes. I have never had someone so pre-prepared for that question. And I loved every second of it because I always have that answer scripted as well of like, you can find me on Twitter at and no one else ever, even other podcasters, I'm sometimes like, come on guys, I want to hear your spiel that you give at the end of things. Let's do it. But nailed it.
Yeah. Hey, I've been on a lot of podcasts. If you want to hear me talk more, there's a link on the website to most of them.
Yep.
But yeah, maybe I'll be back here to rant about fish climbing trees.
I would love that. You're welcome
I'll tell
back.
You all about my love of mud skippers.
We can't. Nope. I'm gonna stop. Gonna close the door there because I love mud skippers. They are just the strangest little guys. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, I need to go as well because Willow's not trying to break my door down.
Love it. Well, on that note, thank you all so much for listening. While you're in the description of this episode, looking for all of Dagmar's links, you can also find links to us on Instagram, Twitter. I complimented you, and now I can't do it because the cat is distracting me. Oh, she's working in your favor to be like, oh, Jack is not a professional science communicator. He knows nothing compared to his guests. No. So reset. So while you're in the description of this episode looking at all of the links for Dagmar's work, you can also find the links to us. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all over the place, at Pangolin Podcast on everything. You can also find me on Twitter at Only Jack Baker and on Instagram at The Only Jack Baker. And yeah, you can subscribe to the show. You're now laughing and throwing.
Sorry.
You could subscribe to. I'm going to power through. You could It's like when they tried to play off Jennifer Coolidge and she just kept talking. This is what you're doing to me. I'm going to keep going. But this is being recorded just after the Emmys where she won. For listeners a year's time, they'll be like, what was that reference? Okay. You can also subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening. You can subscribe to us there and leave us a nice review if you're so inclined. And that is all I have to say. And until next time, everybody, I would say a huge thank you once again to you, Dagmar, for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, despite the chaos this has devolved into at the end.
It's fantastic I'm not even going to try and justify it. Just thank you for that. Thank you so much. And thank you, listeners, so much for tuning back in. Make sure to tune in next time because it will be episode 60, our season finale. And then I'll be going on a little bit of a break because I'm just starting my PhD. So we will be back next week for our season finale. And until next time, goodbye, everyone. And stop the recording there.